Welcome back, everyone, to the Rhonda Swan Show. I'm super excited today because we have a powerful leader and a coach in the divine feminine energy, divine identity, sensuality, and intimacy spaces. Get ready for this one. And now, through activating and expanding men and women's connection to intimacy, she has been able to catalyze her clients' expansion in business, ability to honor their deepest truth, and find deep fulfillment in their personal relationships at the same time. This is one phenomenal woman, a mother, and her story of rekindling her marriage is one that will deeply move you. And she's also the co-author of a book that was named USA Today bestseller. I am so excited to have Melisa Keenan on the show. Welcome, my dear, to Bali.
Thank you, Rhonda. I'm so glad to be here.
So good to have you here. I know you were just sharing the story that your family was actually supposed to be in Bali right now in August. However, you decided to stay back in the States, but look at you. Now we are here together and it is August. Did you plan that?
I did not.
Really? So cool, because I know you were going to come on the show in June, and here we are now in August, and it's like one of those perfect divine moments. So let's get into it, babe, shall we? Because I really love the work that you do, and I know my audience is going to really love this. Because the golden thread of what's really been awakening within you has been that of intimacy, right? So can you share with our listeners a little bit more about your story and that correlation between intimacy that has the level of success in business and in relationships?
Yeah, I lived the majority of my life void of intimacy. And it wasn't until really fully stepping into intimacy that I recognized that I think most of my life I lived without it. And so I married young. I was enthusiastic about being able to author my own story, different than that of my ancestors and different than what I had experienced in my childhood. And I was ready to take on the world. And anybody who's experienced marriage and having a bunch of young children, we have 4, knows that it's not always just a walk in the park. We had some major things hit our marriage, and about 5 years in, my husband let me know that he had a secret addiction. And I don't just share that lightly. We've talked about that at length, that, he feels like if it's going to help people, then we can share it. Because we've grown so much through that process, but literally that meant for 5 years of my marriage, I didn't know what was actually going on in my own home. And what ensued was then a 3-year journey of like, one of those years I call the year I cried on my bathroom floor, because it literally felt like that was all I accomplished that year. Just this deep soul searching and discovery where it felt like I actually was just repeating the same patterns of my ancestors and the same pain that I had experienced in my childhood. But I felt a determination to change that story. And I think that's what kept driving me. So to the point that my husband and I were able to fully restore the intimacy that we experienced in our marriage. And I was able to actually find deep healing through that process and what I call intimacy with myself. That I didn't even know that that was a thing, that existed. And then as a result, both of us were able to expand in our financial world as well. I was able to start this business and really take off in a way that I wouldn't have been able to before, because I didn't really know myself. So the more that I've done this work, the more that I've recognized the patterns that actually show up around intimacy with business owners. And that's where it lit my passion to really serve business owners around this intimacy space, because it's like it's missing in the business world, isn't it? Like that closeness, that connection, that like 5D experience, it feels missing. So I just feel super passionate about this work.
Well, I really love hearing this from you, because intimacy in business isn't normally something that we say together, right? We're usually like, it's one or the other, intimacy is for our relationships and business is business, And I really appreciate that because, and it's fun because I feel like you and I've had several parallel experiences in our life. You know, my husband and I have been together for 24 years, and 24 years, it takes a lot of time, right? And a lot of work and going through that. But being able to take the time to recognize that, I think is something that the world needs to hear more about. And that's why I love the work that you're doing. Can you share a little bit more too on, you know, how did you and your husband, like how are you able to get him to open up to that? Because I think that's something that happens a lot. Like maybe the woman is ready and she has all these needs, right? Or maybe the man is like, you're too cold. You know, how did you come together and how do you help others come together to recognize the importance of the intimacy, you know, and how that can really open up the doors and the spaces for you in business, but really more importantly, just each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you asked that because this is where the conversation around masculine, feminine energy really comes in. People don't like to talk about masculine, feminine energy in marriage. It's become more, I think, kind of trendy to talk about in the business world, but less so in marriage because it actually indicates that we have differences. Mm-hmm. Yep. You know, the equality conversation is so important, but we do have differences. So in my personal experience and what I actually really help with my clients with is I had to recognize that I had learned to live my life in masculine energy. I had learned to live my life in a space of survival. I had such a hard childhood. And then add to that just the fact that we live in a masculine heralded society where there's more emphasis on what you do and on what you can produce and what you can achieve and what you can accomplish. And for me, I found if people were praising me for what I could do, that meant I was safe. That meant I was going to like make it another day on the planet. Like it, you know, and I think many of us can relate to that. It's like, it's survival. So I had to recognize that, and it didn't come easy. You know, at first someone pointed this out to me and gave me a book that actually is very difficult to read. I took the book and chucked it across the room. I was like so angry, you know, typical masculine energy fashion. Totally. It's just like, I just wanted to be like, look, just give me a formula and I'll follow it. I know how to be a good student. I know how to like get stuff done. But this required something completely different. And as I kind of surrendered myself to the journey, I found that there was parts of me that I had actually just never given space for at the table. Parts of me that no one was actually asking me to fit myself into a new box called feminine energy. Right. I actually was being asked to bring forward all parts of me, and it was a great permission. And so what was fascinating to me, because my husband absolutely was resistant to growth, and that's actually kind of part of masculine energy is the desire to just look outward and focus on the tangible rather than looking inward. And so, you know, he was very slow, and we always have this joke, running joke about how like we're the tortoise and the hare, but we seriously always cross the finish line at the exact same time. It's like so frustrating. Right. But what happened was, as I actually brought forward my feminine energy and actually like let myself rest in the relationship, even though I didn't trust this man. You have to remember, he came forward. There have been lies our whole marriage. I didn't really trust this man. I had to find deep trust in the universe in order to allow myself to rest into the relationship. And when I did that, he naturally was like, oh my gosh, this is what I want. Yes. And we were able to create that yin and yang, that polar magnetism that naturally happens in a partnership. What was happening before was I was in this strong masculine energy. My husband would try to show up in masculine, and I would criticize and belittle or try to control him. So then he would fall into yin energy, and I would criticize and be angry about that too. Like, why can't you lead? Why do I have to do everything? All of those kinds of things. when I really rested, he felt this big permission to just be himself. And it was a journey, but it was so worth it.
I can imagine, Melissa, how many women that are watching this, right? Like I've told my story quite a bit, right? Here is, fighting the corporate side and the same thing, right? It's like we emasculate our men, but we want them to be masculine, right? And it's so beautiful. I remember you just brought up, you said when the moment that I rested, I remember the first time that I actually experienced that exact example where Brian stepped into his masculine because I actually relaxed was when I was pregnant. And I had to relax. And I was like, wow, this is 15 years ago. I got to really see him stand in that space. I think that's a really important message for all women to hear, that we are alpha, right? We know how to make things happen, and our upbringing puts us in those spaces. But the moment that we actually allow ourselves to lean in, it then gives them permission in the space to take over, and it's so beautiful. I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to relate to this one, but there's another parallel that you and I actually have too that I think is amazing, and this was also part of how I started to find my lean into my feminine, which was I completely went away, unplugged, and I do this about every 3 months. I'm really due because I've been pretty busy this year. Every 3 months I go away completely in the jungle of Bali. I sit with absolutely nothing, no food, no water, a 3-walled hut with a very thin mat, and I just sit in nature and just connect. And it was so transformative for me because it allowed me to stop all this busyness we get around us and just to really sit and to take it in. And I know you speak about that quite a bit, right? The power of unplugging and how business is impacted, and not just CEOs, but on really your business and your life as a whole. Can you kind of filtrate how intimacy correlates to the unplugging side? Because I think it all starts to be seen, right? We're like, okay, yep, it's the relationship, but really that relationship gets healed and boom, the business comes forward too.
I think so often we want to compartmentalize ourselves. And, if you Google compartmentalization right now, you'll find a bunch of articles teaching you how to compartmentalize. Like, we still don't get it, that's actually extremely toxic.
Yeah.
It's difficult for men, but it is like impossible for women. And we've been trying to prove ourselves in these spaces like, no, I can do this. I can compartmentalize. But it's just a matter of logic that if you are showing up radiant and magnetic and feeling so good and fulfilled and supported in your personal relationships, you're going to show up that way in your business. And you're the heart and soul. If you're the CEO, you're the owner of your company, you're the heart and soul of your business. So of course your magnetism and all that is going to translate into more clients and more magnetism among, your team and all of that.
Well, and I think, just even being rested, right? It even allows you to want to be even in a more intimate space too, right? I think women, we just want to charge. We're either, we're taking care of kids, we're taking care of the business. It's like unplugging allows you just to take care of you, right? I feel that the more that we take care of ourselves, the more that beauty does come out. And, like you said, in business. And I think this is the message that needs to come out more, because we talk so much about business and this, it's like, what about you? What about yourself? And I love how you speak about also not viewing your marriage and sensuality as like another thing, just checklist, right? Instead of like giving it and seeing it as a life-giving, beautiful creation space. Will you go into details on that for us and highlight how this shift impacts women's ability to create more money? Like I think we always like our money side, the women's side wants to come in, but it's like, ladies, like really let's look at this space that you can really create from.
Yeah. Especially for women, this is a message that I think is so needed. Our sensuality has been just trampled on.
Yeah.
Like, I just was saying this to a client yesterday. When have you ever heard an exemplary woman say, I enjoy sex? Like, you don't hear, it's like, okay, like there's just so many boxes and stereotypes around this for women. How do we change that? We get to be the pioneers for this. And so, intimacy isn't all about sex, but one facet of intimacy is sex and sensuality. It's like I always call it the symptom. It's the symptom. It's not the end all be all. It's not the foundation, but it is the symptom. And if you have a beautiful life and a beautiful relationship, you're going to be open in sensuality. You're going to have a great sex life. It just works that way. So, so sensuality, particularly for women, when we've shut that part down in ourselves, often we feel a lot of shame. And so I speak to this from a place of, a lot of tenderness, but with a lot of hope. There really is not I have never yet worked with a woman who has not been able to reconnect to her sex drive. I have never had that experience. If she wants it, she can have it. And I believe that's because it's part of like our birthright. Women are the only mammals with a pleasure organ. Have you ever thought about that? Like, we are the only mammals with a pleasure organ. Even men don't have a pleasure organ. They don't. And so, right? It's like,
I was like, tell me more.
I know, right?
Lucky us.
So therefore, it makes sense that we would follow our pleasure, that we would follow our desires, that we would follow our sensations. Really, sensuality is just a matter of being more aware of your senses. That is what sensuality is. So, then how does that translate as a business owner? We're not talking about anything weird here. We have to kind of clear that space, right? But it's a matter of, are you in tune with your intuition?
Yeah.
Do you know what you're sensing from moment to moment? Do you recognize when something was just said and it actually just triggered the crap out of you? Right. And now you're acting from a focus, or you're acting from a trigger or a trauma. Can you be aware of those senses? And the thing is we often think like our emotions and those sensations that come up, even the pain in our bodies, is actually like they're getting in the way of our success or expansion in our business. It's actually guiding us to our truth, to the most powerful version of ourselves and our most fulfilled lives. So listening to our emotions, to our sensations, guides us to what we deeply desire and what we deeply value. That is the formula for success in life.
I think so many women know it, but they sometimes will just ignore, right? That space of like our divine intuition. It's really it's like what I always use, like the example of with the rose. It's like our blossoming of the rose, and we were given these gifts to be able to shine that. And when I started tapping more deeply into my feminine side and really understanding the beauty that comes from within myself, I just started creating better, right? I was so much more less triggered, right? Or not maybe less triggered, more aware of what that is. And those words, it seems like, are coming out more. Like, obviously we live in Bali, right? So we're like the hub of everything spiritual and connected. And, all of these words are used quite often, and it's very natural for me. However, I find like when I go back to the USA, like people don't even know what a trigger is. They don't know what's going on with them because they've never actually taken the time to realize the traumas that have gone on in their life and why someone shows up for them and it triggers them. It's, and it's like, wow, if humanity, if we all just really stepped in and looked at the healing that we all needed just from the past, how beautiful a relationship can be. And that's why, Melisa, I was so happy for you to be here, and because this is more and more needed to be heard around the world, right? Everyone that's clicking around on social media, like stop and really like tap and tune into you. And I want to really thank you for bringing this into light. I do know that you've got a free intimacy guide that kind of talks about the 4 steps. Can you give everyone a little bit of snippet of that? Because we want to make sure they get that guide, because I think this is opening space for people to really start leaning in and understanding really what it takes.
Yeah, if you head over to my website at melisakeenan.com, you'll find the free resources tab, and the free intimacy guide is there. And it's a very simple tool that can be very quick. Often we think about, emotions, I'm going to bring all this stuff up and then it's going to take away all this time from my business. It doesn't. Even self-care, we think, it has to be this grand thing, like yours, Rhonda, right? Like I have to go meditate in Bali for a week. And that's great. But also we can just bring this into our moment by moment, day-to-day life. So the tools that are in this intimacy guide, it's getting aware of the fact that something is upsetting to you, going in, noticing what it is that you sense or feel, what it is then that you deeply value. And then it has you kind of put that into a statement where you have the opportunity to go and share that with someone else. It provides a lot of clarity. It can be done in less than 5 minutes. And that process actually is something that I spend a lot of time on with my clients. We all think, oh, I'm good with my emotions. Always, I find we're really not. We're very disconnected. Even me, I get to remind myself all the time, like, oh, just feel that. You let it flow through your body, and then it doesn't have to be a big obstacle, right? So it takes you very quickly through that. And now that is a process that I just do. I don't know, it takes 30 seconds. I just have it memorized. I just do it on my day-to-day life.
And people, I don't think people realize how good these type of rituals are, just that self-care. Yeah, you don't have to come to Bali to have self-care. However, it would be nice, and we'll give everyone some views of it. But I do the same thing though, Melissa. Like, I wake up and I just take my own space, right? I have an altar here, and we have a beautiful view here in the ocean, and I just sit with myself, and just give gratitude. And just these simple rituals take us away from the mess, and I think collectively there's a lot of messy energy right now. Everyone's kind of like trying to get back into their space again, and it seems faster because we were all so slow. But like taking these times and really giving yourself some honor. Just a bathtub, right? Just get away from your kids, lock them out. I have a friend, she used to say, she had 5 kids, and she said, I would take a bath and I had 2 cards, a red card and a green card. And unless they had the red card, that meant blood, they could not touch the door. Some of the kids she would find would be sleeping outside the bathroom door, right? Just waiting for her. But like those simple things, men and women, right? Moms and dads, whatever. Like, give yourself that space. And I appreciate you, Melissa, for bringing this up. So what's next for you? What's next for you, your company? Like, where are you bringing this all to light? I know you've got masterminds. You do so many really cool things. Let's share that so everyone knows how to follow you.
Yeah, you know what? Right now, I am actually focused solely on creating really personalized and tailored coaching packages for people. So what that looks like is I meet with someone, I really listen to what it is that they want and what obstacles they face. I am an open book. So clearly it's like, my clients may be divorced 4 times, right? And now they're in this marriage and they want it to be the one that sticks. And they're also growing a business. All the way to, she's just recently divorced and she's trying to uncouple her money story and really gain that sense of oneness with herself. But I meet with these individuals, business owners, and I just talk to them about what it is that they're really wanting in their life. And I think it's so important because our society almost makes us feel guilty for wanting more, for feeling like what's in front of me isn't enough. Like, it should just be enough. Why aren't you just happy? Like, look at your perfect family and your perfect career, and you've climbed the ladder and you've done all the things. And so this is the space where we just like take off all the masks. It's like, what do you really want? And then I just create bespoke containers with these individuals to help them create what they want.
I love it. Thank you, sister, for all that you do. And your transparency for you and your husband. That you said one thing, and I wanted to bring up that he said, if this can help others, I'm willing for you to share it. That's so courageous, right? It's so courageous. And how often do we hide that and say, ooh, look at my success. I'm gonna just hide all those things because I figured them out. That's how we heal. That's how the world heals. And this is why, especially on my show, I want to bring more of that more real transparency so that people can see we're all just human, right? We just so happen to, be in front of the camera right now. But you can truly change and shift the energy in your life. And Melisa, thank you for all that you do. I honor you, sister, and your work. And I really just can't wait to see more of what comes from you and the direction that you're going to take. So, my dear.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks again. And don't forget, everyone, please make sure you go follow Melisa. We'll have all her details here. It's always such an honor to have amazing human beings that are so real and transparent. Imagine your life. Like, are you showing up? Are you looking at yourself? Not just showing up for others, showing up for yourself. Looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, dude, I love you. I love you. And if it doesn't feel right, check that. Your intimacy and your sensuality for yourself is what brings out more beauty, more joy. And then what happens? Your relationships improve. Your husband, your wife, your partner, you become so much more connected. And that then translates into wealth in your life. So everyone, thanks for being here. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Leave lots of comments down below. Make sure you follow our guest, Melisa Keenan. And I can't wait to see you on the next show. Be unstoppable and stay wild.